What is a secondary source, and provide an example of a secondary source?
A secondary source is a source that has been constructed from other sources of information. It may be created later by someone who did not experience firsthand or participate in the events or conditions. An example of secondary source is a history textbook.
The picture shows an environmental poster informing the public on the importance of protecting the environment. Is this source a primary or secondary source? Explain your answer.
The poster is a primary source because it is a source used by the government to convince the people on the importance of protecting and being committed to taking care of the environment. It was also published by the organization and made during that time. Another answer is also acceptable. The poster is a secondary source because it uses a photograph that was taken during an environmental scan by the environmental officer to transform into a poster with a message. It uses primary sources in the form of that photograph.
Defined evidence?
Evidence is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true. Historians require the evidence to support their conclusions of the past.
Explain how the background information can help historians make appropriate inferences.
To make appropriate inferences, the historians need more than just the details they see in the source, and the background information of the source provides the details not found in the source that can help historians understand the source better.
Provide the process a historian would take to create knowledge of the past.
A historian would first ask questions about the past, then he would gather relevant sources and examine the sources so as to extricate relevant and appropriate information that would support a logical conclusion that answers the questions that were asked.
Why would the historian use more than one source when investigating the past?
The historian would use more than one source when investigating the past, as one source is insufficient to tell the whole story of the past. Information obtained from one source may be limited or biased.
How would historians ensure that their description of the past is factual?
Historians ensure that their description of the past is factual by using different kinds of sources and evidence such as oral, written, and pictorial evidence and artifacts. Historians would then corroborate or cross-refer the information gathered for consistency and credibility.
What is the Sejarah Melayu, Malay Annals?
The Sejarah Melayu is a record about the rulers of the Malacca Sultanate and their descendants.
Who changed the name of Temasek to Singapore Singapura, and according to the Sejarah Melayu, where was he buried?
Sang Utama changed the name of Temasek to Singapore. According to the Sejarah Melayu, he was buried on the hill of Singapura, also known as Forbidden Hill or Bukit Larangan.
How does archaeological digs contribute to our understanding of Singapore's past?
The archaeology digs and finds provide valuable artifacts that provide us with a glimpse of how people in the past lived in Singapore and how Singapore was connected with other countries.
Name the overland route that was used during the Han Dynasty in China to travel from China to India.
The overland route is known as the Silk Road.
What was the impact of the fall of the kingdom of Srivijaya?
The fall of the kingdom of Srivijaya created an absence of power over the area near the Sunda Straits, and this resulted in traders shifting their trade activities from the Sunda Straits to the Straits of Malacca. This eventually brought about the rise of Temasek.
Provide 2 reasons why ports in the Malay archipelago were popular for maritime traders before the 14th century.
The first reason why ports in the Malay archipelago were popular for the maritime traders before the 14th century is they were strategically located along the main China-India maritime trade route. They served as convenient stopover ports for ships to be resupplied with food and water, and for repairs. Another reason is that the ports also served as collection centers for goods produced in Southeast Asia, China, and India. Traders from Arabia, India, China, Java, and the Spice Islands exchanged goods at these ports. The wealth gained from trade allowed some of these ports to grow into small kingdoms.
Define entrepot. Provide an example of how Temasek was used as an entrepot port.
Entrepot is a port where goods can be imported and then exported. An example of how Temasek was used as an entrepot port is the Chinese traders from China bringing in Chinese silk and porcelain ware to Singapore to exchange for Indian spices and jewels. Other examples are acceptable.
Study the map of Southeast Asia as shown below. Indian traders were interested in trading with the Chinese, trading koto for silk during the 14th century. Draw the monsoon winds the Indian traders have to wait in order to sail from India to Temasek and indicate the months. The Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824 divided the Malay archipelago into two spheres of influence on the map. Draw the dividing line and label the spheres of influence clearly. Why did the Portuguese want to exert their presence in Southeast Asia during the 16th to 19th centuries?
The Portuguese wanted to gain a monopoly over the spice trade in Southeast Asia.
Name 3 ports set up by the Dutch in Southeast Asia by the early 19th century.
The ports set up by the Dutch were Patani, Malacca, and Sukadana.